He walked into the jungle on Easter Sunday, 1967, and was never seen again. No body, no blood, no farewell note, no sign of struggle, just absence. A man who had survived war, built an empire from silk, and charmed half the world's most powerful people, simply gone, as if the jungle had exhaled once and taken him with it. His name was Jim Thompson, and his disappearance remains one of the most quietly haunted mysteries of the 20th century. Let's start at the beginning. James Harrison Wilson Thompson was born on March 21st, 1906, in Greenville, Delaware. He was, by every account, a man who belonged somewhere else. He attended St. Paul's School in New Hampshire, then graduated from Princeton University in 1928. The same year, almost as a footnote, he represented the United States in sailing at the Summer Olympics in Amsterdam. He went on to study architecture at the University of Pennsylvania, though he never completed the degree. Calculus defeated him 3 times. He failed the licensing exam on every attempt. It was quietly a wound, but he found his way to an architectural firm in New York regardless, designing homes for wealthy families on the East Coast, moving through society with the ease of someone born into it. And when the Second World War arrived, he answered. He joined the Office of Strategic Services, the OSS, the wartime precursor to the CIA. He trained, he deployed, he served with distinction in North Africa and then Europe. And then, as the war was closing in Asia, he was transferred, first to Ceylon, then bound for Thailand, where he was meant to help coordinate with Thai resistance forces. The Japanese surrendered before he arrived on Thai soil, but Thailand did not let him go. Something about Bangkok held him. The canals, the temples, the gold light on the water in the early morning. He left military service, briefly returned to the United States to settle his affairs, a divorce included, and came back. He was done with his old life. This was where he was meant to be. In 1948, Jim Thompson did something that seemed almost naive at the time. He decided to revive the Thai silk industry. For generations, Thai silk had been woven by hand, intricate, luminous, unlike anything produced by machine. But by the late 1940s, the craft was dying. Weavers were aging. Young people were leaving for other trades. There was no market infrastructure, no international distribution, no outside interest. Thompson changed that. He found the weavers of Ban Krua, a community of Muslim weavers living along the canal in Bangkok, and began working with them directly. He standardized widths to suit Western tastes. He refined the dye colors for consistency. He built supply lines and sought out buyers abroad. And his breakthrough came when Irene Sharaff, the costume designer for the original Broadway production of The King and I, chose Thai silk for the production. Overnight, the world noticed. The Thai Silk Company became an international name. He became a millionaire. He became a fixture of Bangkok's expatriate world, known for his dinner parties, his instinct for beauty, and a quiet but magnetic presence that drew people to him. He built himself a home, actually 6 traditional Thai houses joined together, on the bank of the Sian Sahib Canal. He filled it with antiques, Buddha heads, Chinese porcelain, Cambodian sculpture gathered over years of careful searching. It was not a museum. It was a life, arranged with great deliberateness. He was, by all appearances, a man completely at peace with where he had landed. And then Easter weekend, 1967, he traveled to the Cameron Highlands in Malaysia, a cool, forested hill station in central Malaysia, green and mist-covered even in dry season. He had spent a day in Penang with his longtime friend Constance Mangskow before they drove up to the Moonlight Bungalow together on Friday, March 24th. Their hosts were Ling Tian Gi, a Singaporean chemist, and his American wife, Helen Ling. It was a quiet holiday. On Sunday morning, all of them woke early and attended Easter services at All Souls Church in Tanah Rata. They returned to the bungalow. They rested through the heat of the early afternoon. At around 3 o'clock, Jim Thompson stepped outside for a walk. He left behind his cigarettes. He left behind his medication for gallstone pain. He stepped outside, and that was the last confirmed moment anyone ever saw him. When he hadn't returned by dinner, his friends began to worry. By nightfall, they were alarmed. Searches began the following morning. 325 Malaysian police officers combed the jungle trails. British soldiers on leave joined the effort. 30 Orang Asli trackers, indigenous people with intimate knowledge of that specific forest, moved through the undergrowth looking for any trace. Psychics were brought in, including Peter Herkos, who had worked on the Boston Strangler case. The area around the Moonlight Bungalow was not vast. The trails were well known. There were no obvious ravines, no rivers running fast enough to carry a man away without a sound. There was simply nothing. No footprint, no torn clothing, no discarded item, no response to calls. The search expanded over days, then weeks. More teams, more ground covered. International attention gathered quickly. This was not an ordinary missing tourist. This was Jim Thompson, one of the most prominent Americans in all of Asia. Still nothing. After weeks, the search was formally called off. The largest land search in Southeast Asian history had found no trace of a 61-year-old man who had walked away from a hilltop bungalow in the middle of the afternoon. Jim Thompson was gone. What followed was something that happens whenever a mystery has no answer. People filled the silence with theories. The most persistent, that his connections to American intelligence had never fully gone cold, that in a region being remade by the Vietnam War, by communist insurgencies, by covert operations running in every direction, Thompson had become inconvenient, that he had been extracted, alive. Some versions of this suggested he defected willingly, that the man who had grown openly disillusioned with American foreign policy simply chose to walk away from it all, one final time. Others pointed to local political danger. A documentary would later surface, claiming that Thompson had expressed interest in meeting Chin Peng, the Secretary General of the Malayan Communist Party, who was then the most wanted man in the country. The Cameron Highlands at the time was a known hotbed of communist activity. Whether Thompson was perceived as a threat or simply caught in the wrong place at the wrong time, that version of events has never been confirmed and has never been fully dismissed. There are those who believe it was simpler. A man in his 60s, alone on an unmarked jungle path, in terrain that looks identical in every direction. A fall, a heart event, dense forest that swallows things whole. None of these theories have ever been proven. None have ever been ruled out. There's a detail that sits quietly at the edge of this story, and it is one that deserves to be named plainly. On August 30th, 1967, roughly 5 months after Jim Thompson disappeared, his older sister, Katherine Thompson Wood, was found bludgeoned to death in her home in Pennsylvania. She was 74 years old. A blunt object had been used. Nothing in the house had been stolen. Police said they found no direct link between her murder and her brother's disappearance. Her killer was never identified. One account from Thompson's own family holds that whoever entered Katherine's home may have been searching for Jim Thompson's last will, a document that would determine what happened to his considerable estate. The Thai government, at the time, was already pressing to seize his art collection. 2 unsolved cases, 1 family, 5 months apart. Investigators concluded there was no connection. The feeling that something is not quite right about that conclusion has never gone away. Jim Thompson's house in Bangkok still stands. It's a museum now. More than 1 million people walk through it each year. The silk business he founded still operates, one of the most recognized luxury brands in Southeast Asia. His belongings remained exactly as he left them after he disappeared. His reading glasses, his unfinished correspondence. The room's arranged as though he simply stepped away and would be back for dinner. There's something very still about that. A life left mid-sentence. What stays with me, sitting with this case quietly, is not the drama. Though there is drama, it is the smallness of the moment. He didn't vanish in a storm. There was no explosion, no crime scene, no distress call. He walked out of a bungalow on a clear Easter afternoon among people who knew him well and ceased to exist. The Cameron Highlands jungle is old and dense. It holds things. Maybe it simply held him. Jim Thompson would be well past 100 years old today. Whoever he was in those final hours, peaceful, troubled, resolved, or simply restless, we don't know. We have no last words, no final letter, no gesture that tells us what was on his mind as he stepped off the veranda and into the trees. We have only the walk he took and the silence that followed it.